Hey guys, I hope
Easy.
you're doing good. We are here. Well, I'm here, and Roger's about 5 minutes away at the Innate Family Chiropractic Clinic to do another Unplugged Health Series podcast. We say Unplugged Health podcast or Unplugged Health Series podcast?
Unplugged Health Series podcast.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's a mouthful. The Unplugged, just Unplugged Health.
Unplugged Health. We are unplugged. We are live as always, and we want to start getting these podcasts back regular again because we miss doing them and geeking out on information and giving you guys. Like you said, you've had some patients even come to you and say like when you're doing podcasts and things like that. So what's been happening over there in the practice?
Yeah, we're up and running, and our numbers are picking up. We're going good. What's frustrating for us, I suppose, but I suppose necessity of jumping through the hoops of I mean, you've come in and got an adjustment, and we're in. It's our laugh is days gone by where if you got pulled over with rubber gloves, a apron, and a mask, you'd be in trouble. Now you wave through and congratulated. So it's a bit of a hassle between each client changing PPE, but that's the world we live in at the moment. It draws our appointment book out, so we're seeing good numbers, but it just takes a lot longer. So we're working longer hours for a few less numbers, but I think in this day and age you've got to be careful what you moan about. We've got a good solid patient base. We've got people keen to use our services, and with what's going on around and seeing where people's headspace is and where people's health is, I would say with or without coronavirus, because there's other things which come into play. It's great to be of service and make a difference at the moment. So it's an interesting time. It's great to be working with clients, but it's noticeable that we are working and we're living and we're supporting people in slightly different ways at the moment.
Definitely, it's definitely good to be back having regular adjustments again, and it's interesting. Like you touch on the topic there of be careful what we moan about. I had a conversation yesterday with my brother-in-law, and he was saying, "How's the gym now?" I said, "Well, there's a couple. It's annoying that there's only 3 cross trainers on the busy time, and the leg curls out of action, and certain bits of equipment are out of action. But I'm not going to moan about it because if I look to 2 months ago, I'm grateful to have the equipment that we've actually got there, because." Yeah. When we think of actually being fully in lockdown and certain things closed and all that sort of thing, that what we did get by on compared to what we've got now and where we are currently at, it's in a much better position. And as we said, hopefully things will stay that way. But what we wanted to touch on today is the stress levels that we seem to be under. And I think this is with or without a lockdown. Like before 2020, we still had these levels of stress, right?
Yeah, I think this is a different stress than lockdown. You're touching a bit like going to the gym. Everything is, I think there's this underlying feeling of we're getting used to a new normal, but some aspects feel like we're a bit closer to our normal and others still feel very far away. So we're playing the game, but no one's happy with that game. We're kind of tasting that we want to get back to what is normal for us, rather than this new normal as such. But also, there's a lot of uncertainty of what the next phases are. So it's a very different feel to lockdown. There's a different fear factor at play.
Oh yeah, and I think what we need to look at is, well, we have our conscious and our subconscious mind. This is something I've done a lot of work on. Is that before March, we never knew what a lockdown actually was. And then we're suddenly thrown into this. And I think no matter how much mindset work and psychology work you've done and positive psychology or whatever we want to look at, no matter how much you've done, it still threw you off when everything was shut down. Now, me being an introvert, I don't go out loads anyway, but like that's how they said, check on your fellow extroverts and see how they're doing at that point. But it was kind of, we were thrown into this masses of unknown. And I think like our actual like conscious mind only works like 10 to 15% of the time anyway, out of the day. The rest is our subconscious. So that's trying to deal with behind the scenes what is going on. And we've kind of got used to being in a lockdown period. You said days seem to blend into one, and we've spoken about whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. And then suddenly had this like these like grasps for normal coming back. Like it seems like a normal-ish sort of life. Yes, going into stores with masks or whatever it is. It's a funny thing that when I used to wear a bandana or something when I was a kid, and you walk past someone on the street, they'd run a mile, and now if you don't wear it, they run a mile. It's a pretty crazy world we live in at the moment, but we've then got these normal things coming to grasp onto us. And then now our subconscious is having to deal with where we're being told we can't see this many people, we can't do this, we can't do that, we might not be able to do this, we might not be able to do that. And we're seeing it everywhere on social media, and it just kind of, it starts to infect us.
Yeah, hugely. I think we've got to be mindful of that, and be kind of almost take responsibility for our own mental health, our own aspect, and try and actually see the game, see what's at play and apply it to us. You know, a bit like coming out of lockdown, everyone's routine is slightly different. So everyone has a different slant at it. So any guidelines or so is not going to cover all possibilities. So we bitch and moan about, well, what about this? What about that? And actually saying, right, what is the intention of these guidelines? How does it actually apply to me? And what can I control? What can't I control? And when you do that, you actually realize you do still have quite a bit of freedom. You still have a lot of things that you can take advantage of. So we've got to be really careful of what we focus on, because emotion and that subconscious pull of what's in the media, what's coming through, what conversations people overhear, and how these things affect other people, we very quickly can be pulled into a state of fear, of panic, of uncertainty, all those things back, and that really then creates a whole host of other problems. Where in fact, actually, a moment for this year, probably we've got the most amount of control of what we can do. And yes, there's new guidelines come in, but for most people, it doesn't stop you doing a lot of things that are beneficial. And we've got to stop. We've still got to stop and check in with ourselves and realize there is still a lot of freedoms and things we can do.
Definitely, and looking at there's another conversation. I went to my auntie's 70th birthday yesterday, so I was sitting next to my brother-in-law, and we were talking about some of the different things coming in, and ironically, how we could have that party yesterday, but we couldn't have it today. And I think, how is this actually possible? Like, even though we were distancing and everything like that, and that, okay, clock strikes 12, we can't then have that party. But like we're getting wound up by certain things when people watch the 10 o'clock news. That is right before people go to bed, and on that news there's a lot of negative news sells more than positive news. And then you think of that stress release, like that cortisol release before bed, is going to blunt our melatonin, going to stop us getting this impactful, deeper level of sleep with all these bad stories. Then we might then be frustrated or scrolling through Twitter or Facebook or whatever, Instagram, whatever social media feed you find yourself on, where it's just negative. And there's a hell of a lot. One of my friends posted an article he's got in the Evening News. He's talking about the restaurants he owns, and there's 35, 40 comments at the moment, and probably half of them are negative, saying, well, who does he think he is? He thinks he's special. And why talk about plant-based? All that stuff. It's stressful for people.
It's ironic, isn't it? In that, in this day and age, because I can't remember the last time I bought a newspaper.
No.
But the online world, the digital world, allows us more access to information than ever before. But we're not very well trained to cherry pick and choose which information do we need, and what information do we trust. So we just allow ourselves to get exposed to all the information. So we get information overload, and then also we engage on social media platforms into communication and conversations on a very poor platform. So a lot of it on social media, if I have to be very critical, tends to be easier to be negative or confrontational to then actually engage in meaningful conversation. So a lot of people are overloaded with too much information, poor information, and then engage in negative debate. And that just does the stress levels, as you say, just absolutely no good, because we never get to a conversation on social media that finishes on a note that there is a beginning, end, and a summary. It just feels like you end up just going on to the next conversation, and it just steamrolls this negative vibe all the way through.
People don't actually, I say people don't, that's a blanket statement there. A lot of people don't see what it's actually doing physiologically to our body and our hormonal status. Yeah, we'll have like adrenaline come through, like neurotransmitters, and like epinephrine will be released almost instantly. And then it's the same sort of fight or flight mode, and then we try and go to sleep with that. And how much actually, I've done a live in my group today talking about the number one thing that I say for people to improve their health is being consistent with their waking and going to bed times. So the waking and bed times.
Yeah,
being consistent with them, getting your circadian rhythm right.
And we talk about the additional stress of poor information, but that's actually that's additional stress to the reality of the stress of, is my job secure? What's my income? I've had to have been furloughed. Well, those are normal. That's a natural state of stress, because that is the actual factual events that are happening. But we kind of find solace in knowing that it's a bit like a soap opera, that other people are in the same place. So we engage into how's it affecting everyone. So we're in Norwich, obviously. If there are things which go on in another part or another country even, it's actually not that relevant to us. We don't need to engage and take on all that information about what's going on. I had a patient earlier who was going on, they're worried about that we're going to go into a second lockdown because apparently Israel either have or they're thinking of or doing another lockdown. And it's like, but we're in a totally different situation. Although we don't want to be blind, we don't need to engage and then divulge into all the information of another strategy. It's actually irrelevant.
Yeah, like we've seen other countries, how other countries have handled what's been going on. And said they've handled it better, and I think we then get into this position that a lot of people do in a lot of situations, that team is better, that person is better, that idea is better, and the grass is greener on the other side.
And then lose that control of how have I lose that element of self. This is who I am, this is my situation, what is out of balance, what do I need to engage in to bring myself balance. So who do I speak to, who do I gain information, and also just trusting self of, this is who I am in times of other stresses, this is what has helped me. So how can I, for some people it will be things like mindfulness and meditation will bring them back to be centered. But in times of stress and almost delirium with everyone else's stress around, we lose all those key qualities that we know that work for us as an individual.
Yeah.
So I think it's important in times of stress to reconnect with self, of who you are, what traditionally helps you in times of stress. And that's it's a tougher one. You've got to work on that. But it comes with someone who is keeping control. And it's an interesting thing you mentioned with information, with mindfulness and meditation. The quickest way to override and dampen down a lot of that emotional overload is engaging in prefrontal activation, which is through mindfulness meditation. That's why CBT works very, very well. So communicating with people with it, but communicating in a meaningful way with a reliable resource, rather than the social media, the hype, because that just creates more stress. As I say, cortisol levels go up then.